And now let me invite our last but not least speaker with the presentation today, Neil Hopcroft, Director of the Customer Success Europe at Forum 3, with the presentation of the digitalization of banking and payments. You're welcome. Hello. Hello, Neil. We don't hear you. Can you turn on your microphone, please?
Is that better?
Yes. Perfect.
Classic. Sorry. Thank you. Last but not least. So, yeah, thanks for putting on the great event.
Thank you.
Apologies for the slightly husky voice, but I've got a cold somehow, even though I haven't been outside for 4 weeks. But anyway, welcome to my home. It's been great seeing people's homes over these weird times. My art's often criticised, but there's no building outside. The kids aren't at home, so hopefully we'll have some peace and quiet. I'm also very aware that at this time of the conference, usually everyone would want to be going to the bar, getting a drink and some nibbles. So get yourself in a comfortable chair, maybe have something a bit more exciting than a glass of water, and I hope you enjoy the presentation. So I'm Neil Hopcroft. Most people call me Hop. So feel free to bombard us in the Q&A later on. We're really excited to begin our journey in Central and Eastern Europe. We're established in the UK and Western Europe, so I'm really excited to share our story with you and hopefully get lots of questions and feedback. Just waiting for the clicker. There we go. So, the European Union, one of the most attractive markets in the world for a business to set up in. It's large, credible legal structure, developed economies, educated population. But for SMEs to function efficiently, they must have access to good banking products. But where does that all begin? It all begins with trust, that thing you can't smell, you can't see it, you can't touch it, but it's so important and it guides all of our decisions. And as a payments company, you need to trust that your money is safe, that your payment will arrive at its destination on time and for the right amount. But we need to peel this back a little bit and see how difficult and complex it is for your bank to manage this from a payment perspective. So the first pillar of payments is usually a domestic clearinghouse. So in the UK, it could be faster payments. In Germany, it could be the Bundesbank. In Holland, it could be Equins. Many moons ago, before SEPA wasn't even a concept, there'd usually be a central clearinghouse where all banks would interact and settle their money with. And they still exist today, and they're really important. But then in 2008, the SEPA, Single European Payments Area, launched SEPA credit transfer, which enabled bank-to-bank payments across borders within the SEPA zone, usually on a time lag of a day or so, depending on the institution. In 2009, SEPA direct debits were dropped in, and we can already see that those two systems are already 12 years old. So to give you an idea of how old that is, that was the second generation of iPhone. So we're talking about before 3G, with that funny little E on your screen. Technology was completely different to the way it is now. Cloud was really a thing for many companies. Then in 2017, which was just 3 years ago, SEPA Instant. It was piggybacking or trying to copy other schemes around the world with instant transfers. So that's an end-to-end bank transfer in under 10 seconds, usually. And then on top of this, a bank would usually also have a SWIFT infrastructure. And that's the corresponding banking network between other banks that they need to manage liquidity with and send messages with. So already, we've got your national infrastructure, we've got 3 SEPA schemes, we've got SWIFT connectivity, and if you're in any other markets, it just adds and adds and adds. And all of these ecosystems have different messaging formats, they have different times for the payments, different costs, they have different software systems that they run on. So it's all very old, other than the instant schemes, which are quite new. And it can be quite antiquated to connect to. And this is all just the technical requirements of connecting to the scheme. This is nothing to do with the requirements of a modern business. So in addition to the technical requirements, just need to move my clicker on. Hopefully that works. We have regulatory challenges as well. And this is often the guiding force that banks have to respond to. So originally, SEPA Instant was an optional scheme, but it's likely to be a mandatory one from 2021. TIPS will be made a hard requirement for banks to manage as well. ISO 20022 is another project that banks have to implement as well in the coming years. We've got request to pay coming from a product side, which aims to replace a lot of cash transactions and direct debits. And then you've also got the modernisation of the bank itself. So they want to focus on who they're servicing. Are they staying relevant? What products are they going to offer in the future? All of this I've been talking about is just the basics of processing payments. How can they allocate their scarce resources to focus on the things that they're good at and leverage their intellectual property? And all of this has to happen at as little cost as possible. Because payments, most people don't expect to pay for in most markets. So when I'm sending a transaction, I just expect the bank to do it. I don't expect them to charge me much, if at all, to make that transfer happen. So it's not really a value-added service that a bank can offer, it's just expected. So as you can see, payments is super complicated. And a couple of these quotes here, so banks have 15 full-time employees per scheme, just handling payment exceptions and oddities of what might happen with a payment. There's no transparency at the moment over the payment or its costs. So you can see here another quote from Forrester. On average, B2B businesses spend 16 to 20% of the payment value to recover the payment. So often they can spend in excess of $1 million on this, just chasing over £100 million in revenue. And finally, they often have to manage all that. This explain they manage multiple connections, but sometimes they have multiple brands that all go into that same scheme on the same rails. So often we hear stories of retired employees coming back to look under a black box and see what's wrong with the payment. They have no idea what's going on because these systems were designed 20 or 30 years ago at times. So we can conclude from this, I'm just going to have some water, that payments are complicated, but they're also absolutely critical. Okay. A bank not being able to send payment is like an airport with no runways. It can't operate. But also on top of that, payments are binary. They happen or they don't. And it's as a result of this that they're highly commoditizable. So, as I say, you're not adding any intellectual property or uniqueness by the mechanics of sending the payment. So banks are now getting into that mindset of outsourcing these functions. Because if someone can do it on a one-for-many basis, then it's surely going to be cheaper and more cost-effective. So the future of banking is composable by design. And one of our partners, Mambu, is a big advocate of this. So who can you get that's best in breed to enable your bank to operate efficiently, build great use cases, and have better outcomes. So Form 3 pop into this mix, and we're like the foundations of your house. You never see us, you never see the fancy bifold doors or the windows or the roof. We are foundations that underpin all of the payment rails in clearing and settlement. So we provide financial institutions with better, more cost-effective and scalable payment experiences. And this is huge. We don't just do it for one scheme, we do it for the many schemes, as I mentioned. And the platform that we have is completely designed for the cloud. So it runs on 24/7 by 365. We have a fully managed ops team to look after this. All payments running in and out of the platform. We can deploy code on a daily basis, which continually enhances the product set, and also means there's no downtime. So you don't get those horrible maintenance issues of, you can't send payments over this weekend window. And it makes us infinitely scalable, infinitely deployable, and always on for a world of instant payments. So if I give you a few examples of some of the types of exercises we run, we recently were involved, or are involved, in delivering the new payments platform for Lloyds Bank, who are one of the largest banks in the UK, and that's them becoming digital at their core. So that means, and I quote their CEO, this is simplifying their payments architecture while enhancing security and performance, and that's crucial for the digitalisation of their group. So this is us being the core infrastructure of a re-platforming exercise of a Tier 1, Tier 2 bank. The next example was N26, who they're one of the fastest growing payments banks in Europe. They wanted to have full autonomy over their SEPA Instant connection, so they used us to connect into RT1. So that's an example of a new product that they couldn't access in Germany, and they wanted to take ownership of that payment rail and for us to manage that for them. I think this is a really good example of how fintechs can collaborate together. Basically, this leverages a partnership we have with Barclays Bank across Europe, and they have their assets and their liquidity, which sponsors another fintech to send payments directly into a payment scheme. So we've partnered with Barclays and a company called Prepaid Solutions, who are a banking and issuing platform which helps the likes of Money's and Yolt and Klarna and many others. And we supply all of those fintechs under their umbrella with instant payments through our platform. This really outlines how we're not just a banking platform, but a platform for all FIs. So one of our key mission statements is we democratise payments for all of the participants in the SEPA zone. And this is super critical because APC had their retail payment report last week, and they are following the footsteps of a number of other regulators, whereby they feel that banks shouldn't just have the best payment world, and it should be accessible for everyone. So they're now thinking about allowing e-monies and PI licenses to be able to access this infrastructure, to make the landscape more competitive, and to be able to have the same quality of infrastructure as banks do as well. But also we're enabling banks to better service their fintechs. So it's a real collaborative environment to be able to democratise and have access to payments across lots of different markets. The final example is us helping LH3 Bank, who are an Estonian bank, enter the UK market. So they leverage our expertise locally in order to be able to service their customers, and they have an agency banking service in order to use both of our assets again to have better outcomes. So to sum up, Form 3 are helping financial institutions to tackle re-platforming, take advantage of cloud-native technology, and deliver better payment experiences for all of our own customers. We do that via a unified API, so the same API gives for lots of different payment schemes. We harmonise all the messaging format across those payment schemes, which is ISO 20022 compliant. And we have lots of microservices which go in to make up the riches of the platform. So whether that's IBAN generation, whether that's taking access to a scheme, whether that's checking certain types of payments, it's all in the microservice and the quality of the platform. It's absolutely future-proof by design. So as I mentioned, it's cloud native. We're across 3 Amazon data centers. So we have an infinitely scaled proposition. So for instance, if a bank is scaling at 20% a year, they don't have to expand their physical systems. It automatically happens through our tech. So I think that's it. I want to thank you all again for staying till the end. 5 o'clock on on a Wednesday. So I hope there's lots of questions. If you want to ask them offline, please feel free to get in touch via the email. And we're, as I say, really excited to enter the market soon.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for your presentation. And I have one question to you. So when will the instant payments available here in Europe, which is very crucial for the SMEs, how do you see this? Where this is going to happen? And is this more a question of the technology or legislation?
I think it's both. Technology is crucial because banking assets traditionally haven't enabled that instant relay of messaging of transactions. So often you have to send your message to a bank, but the timestamp starts from the initial sending of the payment, whereas often that bank has to then relay the message to the scheme, which has to relay the message to the end customer. So having a new technology on hold is often very prohibitive of actually getting the SLA of that instant payment. So what we're helping banks to do is to realise that by sending those messages throughout tech stack.